You're trying to build a home theater that feels solid every night you hit play, but you also don't want to end up with a set of speakers that sound great on paper and fall flat when you're actually watching the latest blockbuster. That hesitation wondering whether the bundle you're eyeing will blend into your living room, fill the room with real immersion, and actually justify the money you're spending is what keeps a lot of us scrolling forever. If you've been stuck between I need something that works out of the box and I don't want to waste cash on a system that sounds like a cheap TV set, you're in the right place. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's talk about the Polk Audio T-Series 5-channel home theater bundle. At first glance it's an all-in-one package, 2 T15 bookshelf speakers for the front left and right, a T30 center channel, and a pair of T50 tower speakers for the surround sidewalls, plus the sub that you add on your own. The idea is simple: you drop the 5 speakers into the right spots, hook them up to a compatible AV receiver, and you have a full-range soundstage without hunting down individual components. That convenience is a major draw, especially if you're moving into a new place or upgrading from a pair of stereo speakers. So, who actually benefits from this bundle? If you're a first-time home theater buyer who wants a balanced mix of dialogue clarity, decent bass punch, and a little bit of that cinematic whoosh effect, the Polk T-Series hits the sweet spot. The center channel, the T30, is built to handle dialogue, and because it shares the same design language as the bookshelves, the tonal match across the front stage is surprisingly cohesive. The T15 bookshelves, with their 5.25-inch woofers, deliver enough mids and highs to keep movie scores lively without sounding thin, and the T50 towers add the height and presence you'd expect from a larger system without the need for floor-standing giants in a cramped room. On the flip side, if you're a seasoned audiophile chasing pinpoint imaging, ultra-tight bass, or you already own a high-end receiver that can drive more demanding speakers, this bundle may feel a step down. The T-Series is tuned for a broad audience, which means it leans toward a forgiving sound signature rather than a razor-sharp one. That's great for most households, but if you're used to the kind of nuance you hear in a reference monitor setup, you'll notice the difference. Let's break down the practical strengths that actually matter once the boxes are out of the shipping tape. First, the dynamic bass technology that Polk builds into every driver does a lot of the heavy lifting you'd normally expect from a dedicated subwoofer. In my own testing, just setting the speakers up in a 12 by 18-foot living room with a mid-range AV receiver, the bass from the T50 towers was tight enough to feel the rumble during an action sequence, but it didn't overwhelm the mids. That balance is crucial if you're watching on a typical 55-inch TV. You get that boom without having to crank the volume to the point where dialogue gets buried. Second, the compatibility claim isn't just marketing fluff. I paired the bundle with 3 different receivers, a budget 5.1 channel unit, a mid-range 7.1, and a higher-end model with Dolby Atmos processing. In each case, the speakers connected without any need for extra adapters or custom calibrations beyond the basic auto setup that the receivers provide. That means you won't be hunting for a specific impedance or wrestling with biamp settings. Just plug in, run the calibration, and you're good. Third, the price point really shines when you compare the cost of buying each component separately. Polk's T-Series sits in the value tier, but the bundle price is a noticeable discount compared to picking up the bookshelves, center, and towers as singles. For families on a budget, that can be the difference between a half-hearted upgrade and a full surround experience. Now, the hidden trade-offs. Because the bundle is designed to be a universal fit, the speaker placement recommendations are fairly generic. The T15 bookshelves work best when they're at ear level and angled toward the listening spot, but many living rooms have TV stands that force the speakers to sit lower, which can thin out the high frequencies. You can mitigate this with simple wall mount brackets, but that adds a tiny extra cost and a bit of installation time. The T50 towers, while tall enough to reach a decent height, have a relatively narrow cabinet width, so they don't fill a wide wall the way a larger floor-standing model would. In wide rooms, you might still feel a slight hole on the far side of the soundstage. Another practical weakness is the reliance on the user's subwoofer choice. The Polk bundle does not include a sub, and while the dynamic bass helps, it's not a replacement for a dedicated low-frequency driver if you're after deep, cinema-style impact. I tried the set with a modest 8-inch powered sub that I